I would rather fail taking the risk, knowing that I tried, than stay in something that I was unhappy in and that I didn't want to do anymore. I think accepting that you don't know everything and not being afraid to ask for help. In sales, you can't be thin-skinned. You have to be able to adapt very quickly. It's kind of sink or swim. I was working 12 to 14-hour days every day. All I did was eat, sleep, and work. Like, there's no turning back. If you can't successfully navigate the people that you don't get along with as well, you're not going to be able to really thrive.
So I'm here with Summer, who's the owner of the Funny Bus Atlanta. I just wanted to thank you for being on here today. You're my first guest, so thank you for getting our feet wet with the podcast.
Absolutely, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So just kind of our background, how we know each other. We worked in corporate and we crossed paths in one of the companies that we worked for. I was on the professional services side and you were?
I was one of the sales executives at the company.
Yes. So what I wanted to discuss basically today was your background. So I went into your LinkedIn and I checked that you had a lot of sales experience. And I wanted to discuss how has that shaped or helped in what you do today as the owner of the Funny Bus Atlanta.
Well, that's a great question. I think just being in sales, you have to feel really comfortable interacting with a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities. It's important that you're a really great communicator and that you're a great relationship builder, not only just with the clients that you service and that you work with, but also the people, your colleagues and the people that you work with. Building those relationships at the end of the day are critical to your success, not only with your role at the company that you're working in or working at, but it also opens up other opportunities down the road with your relationships, and you never know what that could lead to. So I think, being in sales and working with so many different types of people, different personalities, different backgrounds, it really does help prepare you for, life in general and building that confidence and experience to explore potential other opportunities down the road.
But I was going to say the different personalities, like you said, at the end of the day, we're all, doing a 9 to 5, but we're all different people, have a lot going on. So I would agree. How much of the sales aspect of it do you use in your business today? Has that been helpful, knowing how to sell, who to sell, what to look out for, things like that?
Yeah, I think being in sales, personally, I'm an extrovert and I am a people person. And, when you're in sales, you have to be able to communicate well with others. And like I said, you're building those relationships, but you also learn about, what skills you need to be successful and achieve your sales number, right? So there's a lot of skills involved with that process that I've learned over the years in my experience that are absolutely applicable in this scenario. I have to build my business and sell my business. And I know what tactics and things that I need to do in order to do that because I have so much experience doing that in so many other roles in my career. So, whether that's marketing, social media is, if you've been in sales a long time, that there isn't any one thing that gets you to your number. It's a bunch of different things that you have to do to help facilitate that. whether that's, me going to hotels, dropping off brochures, um, uh, going networking at different functions around the city, focusing and determining which organizations that the Funny Bus should be a part of, meeting people through my network, leveraging my network. I'm from Atlanta. I know a lot of people here, so leveraging those relationships and those resources at my fingertips are absolutely critical as well. So they're, just being able to understand that there's a myriad of different things I need to be doing to help facilitate that is critical. Also, things like when we do a private tour, getting those reviews. If the client had a great time, making sure that I'm facilitating or capitalizing on their great experience. When people have a great time or enjoy an experience, usually they're happy to leave a review. So it's really important to follow up on that because that's also all part of building the business as well.
Did you have any mentors, whether it was in corporate, did you ever have any mentors? And even now, you know, were there any learnings or things that you were able to fall back on to make things easier for you?
Absolutely. I 100% believe in mentors. And in fact, I think some of the biggest professional growth in my life and career has been through my peers and the people that I've worked with. I feel like there's so much that I've learned just from leaning on others, whether it be on my team, another manager. And again, that goes back to building relationships. And I think accepting that you don't know everything and not being afraid to ask for help is a really important tool. And having that, I don't know if you call it humility or being humble enough to know I don't know all the answers. Somebody else knows more about this than I do. Can you help me? And most of the time, people are willing to help if you ask for it, and you build that relationship with them. People generally want to help others, and it's just a matter of determining, what you don't know, and who might be a good resource to help support you through that. And like I said, I have friends that have experience in different types of roles in their careers. And so being able to lean on them and ask them questions on how to do things is definitely contributed to my success, not just in other, past corporate roles I've been in. I can think of probably 2 or 3 mentors at every company I've worked at least, if not more. But even now in this position, owning my own business has definitely I have a handful of mentors for sure.
Did you seek them out, or was it something that just naturally happened?
I would say most of the time it's natural. Like you kind of you start to learn a different set of skills or maybe a new product in a position, and there's a learning curve, and then you usually have someone on your team or someone kind of close to you or a handful of people close to you that are have different responsibilities, sometimes in different roles, like you being a solution consultant in your role at the company we worked at together, and I was a sales executive. And it's identifying who may be an expert in a certain area that you need some assistance with, and determining where your gaps are and where they may be able to help fill that gap for you to be a success.
Yeah, kind of helping each other out, because I think when you find a common ground, for example, we needed sales to come in, and my, responsibility was to have work for the team to do. So it just kind of makes sense to train and teach the sales team on how to sell a particular product so that we're busy, you guys get the sale. And it's just, I think sometimes it just falls into you're helping each other out, and it's just natural, like you said.
Absolutely. It's really a partnership, you know. We're stronger when we work well together.
Yes.
We have this overall same goal is to bring in more sales. My role is, you know, in this instance was, you know, more specifically to sell. You're supposed to help bring that expertise and knowledge behind the product to the client. um, and so when we partner together and we strategize together, right, there's a lot of planning involved in that strategy. It's not just, you know, we show up and deliver something and then expect the bam, the sale to happen. In this instance, preparation and planning is more critical really at the end of the day than anything. So, you know, it really is a true partnership when it comes to mentoring and, um, you know, getting that expertise and education from someone that you trust.
Yeah, because I think when we got to talk when we were in the corporate scenario, I think it was good trying to understand what you needed to know in order to get the sale, who to contact, when did we need to come in, what you needed from us, and then so that we can get the sale. And jointly, it was, as I said, we were working toward a common goal.
Absolutely. And, you know, in those cases, determining what the client's challenges were, how can we really fit, you know, alleviate those challenges, make their life easier, and make sure that we present that case for them properly. And then, of course, then, you know, there's additional steps that lead through
Yeah.
that process. But again, that all goes back to the planning and preparation too, and the teaming and the collaboration between us.
Yeah, and also at the end of the day, I think the common goal that we found was the client experience. So wanting to make sure that the client had a seamless experience from the sales to the transition, from sales to implementation, and so forth.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So like I said, I checked your LinkedIn, and aside from us working together, I saw that you had a lot of experience in sales. And how many years were you in sales, would you say?
Oh, wow. um, it, I can't keep up anymore. I think somewhere between 15 to 20 years overall. I guess in some ways I've probably been selling my whole life. So, but yeah, I would say, you know, 15 to 20 years. I was in technology sales and worked at, like you said, a variety of different companies. So, a lot of different work environments, a lot of different cultures, different types of products. Every single company and product and organization has its, you know, unique challenges. I think that's another thing about being in sales and, you know, doing what we you know, historically we're used to doing at our former companies is being able to adapt. So you have to be really quick on your feet and you have to be very resilient because there's a lot of different things and variables that change and come at you. And it's not for the faint of heart. You have to be tough and resilient. And I think without a doubt, those experiences throughout my career have completely prepared me for owning my own business because you really do have to have tenacity and have a drive. In sales, you can't be thin skinned. And, you know, you all have to be able to adapt very quickly. It's kind of sink or swim, to be honest with you. So I really felt like those experiences being in sales and those different roles really helped position me for, you know, if I can do all these different things and I figured it out, I can certainly do this.
Which leads me to my next question. Why now? I know you've been in business since 2024, last year. What led you, you know, with your 15 to 20 years from corporate, starting something brand new? You know, was it something, for example, I think we were discussing before, a lot of people leave corporate and they end up doing something that is their passion or something that they've kind of put aside since their childhood. They would, they were good at music, but they didn't see themselves being lucrative in terms of financially. So why Funny Bus?
That's a great question. I think growing up, or I think all of us to some degree have role models through our life or throughout our life, or people we look up to and we think, wow, this person did this or this person did that. And, you admire their drive. But in my mind, I never had that thing that I was like, I didn't have that passion for anything in particular. I think that's actually one of the most um, amazing things if someone can actually find something they're really passionate about and go for it, because I think that that's just something that so many people in life are searching for that have a really difficult time figuring out. And I never really knew what that was for me either. And so, I have loved sales throughout my career, and it's been that part of my life was very fulfilling to me at a certain time of my life. But I did get to just a different place as you grow and evolve and mature. Your needs and what fulfills you changes. And I started realizing that I really was more of a people person, and I love to laugh. All of my friends will tell you. I love to laugh. I was the class clown in high school, so I was always, the one dressing up for, costume day, or some crazy competition at school, or doing something silly in the lunchroom and making my friends laugh. So I always had and my mom was really funny. She had a great sense of humor growing up. So, me and all my siblings all have a very similar sense of humor. We love to laugh. When we all get in a room together, everybody knows or recognizes that we're related. So, I think at some point I decided, I have some near and dear friends to me that are very entrepreneurial. They originated the concept of the Funny Bus in Charlotte almost 10 years ago. And about 10 years ago, when they launched it, they would tease me about bringing it to Atlanta. And it was kind of a joke, like, ha ha ha, that sounds so funny. I wasn't taking it seriously at all. I was, making great money in the midst of my sales career and, doing really well. So it wasn't even something that I was willing to entertain. But as I mentioned, things evolve, and, the pandemic happened. And there were just some other things in my life that my priorities just changed. And I realized that I didn't really want to be in the corporate space anymore. And I would go visit my friends that originated the Funny Bus in Charlotte, and I would see how successful their business was doing and how much fun they were having doing it. And I kept thinking, this does seem like fun, and they do keep asking me to bring it to Atlanta.
So they planted the seed in a sense.
They planted the seed that at first was like a funny ha ha ha, not even a consideration, but grew. And I would say about 6 or 7 years after they had launched, their business was doing so well. And then one of my business partners, Lisa, her brother, Dean, lives in Cleveland. They're originally from Ohio, actually ended up franchising and taking the business to Ohio, and was a raging success there in Cleveland. And so I saw, Dean's done this in Cleveland, and, it's been a huge success there. And then I started thinking, well, what do we have like this in Atlanta? or is there what kind of tourism options do we have in Atlanta? And I, as a local native Atlantan myself, wasn't familiar with anything like that. And so I was like, you know what, maybe just check out a few tours in Atlanta, see what's available, and just do a little research on my own. And I did, and I started looking into it, and I took some tours, and I realized, they were very informative tours, and some of them were great, but there really wasn't anything like the Funny Bus, which is a 90-minute tour of Atlanta's most historic sites with a comedian as your host, and guests can be YOB or wine. So there was nothing even close to that kind of a concept here. And I really wanted to have something that my friends that are from here would want to take their friends or family from out of town on a tour to see the city, and in a really unique way. And so after, asking my business partners a lot of questions like, how do you do this? And what do you do that? Where did you get this? And much debate and discussion with them, I finally decided that it was time for me to make the leap.
And I mean, it's been a year, almost a year and a half, and it's, from what I can see, it's been very successful.
Yeah, it's so we we have so far been on the front page of the living section of the Atlanta Journal Constitution. We were on Fox 5 News recently on Good Day Atlanta with Paul Milliken. We regularly sell out tours. I have 2 to 3 tours on Saturdays. We're now close to regularly running 2 tours on Sundays. So our tours are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We do a lot of private tours. So we do corporate tours, a lot of corporate tours during the week. Birthday parties, bachelorette parties. It's a really great thing to do for groups, for something unique to do. Corporate wise, it's hard to look. We were in corporate. It's hard to find things that are unique with a large group of
With a group,
people.
yeah.
And it's just the Funny Bus really, who doesn't love to laugh, right? I mean, laughter brings people together, especially in today's world with everything going on. One thing that's great about the Funny Bus is you have 90 minutes where you just shut out everything that's going on in the world around you. You get to laugh. It doesn't matter, where you come from, what your political views might be, what's going on in your life right at that moment. For 90 minutes, you get to have a great time. Bring your favorite glass of wine or beer or seltzer water if you don't want alcohol, but get a history of the city with some laughter. And we play music trivia, we play games. You can win some prizes on our tours as well. Our tours, many times people end up singing, dancing, and it's not just interaction or people on the bus that benefit. No one is safe from the jokes on the Funny Bus. A lot of times people on the streets are dancing, singing, or part of the act. It's a lot of improv. So the comedians interacting and, telling jokes, playing off the crowd on the bus as well as on the streets. So it's really a feel-good, fun, high energy, and interactive experience. And I feel like we're just spreading joy around the city when we're out in the bus because everybody waves at us, and it's just a really good, fun, entertaining experience.
From the moment that you made the decision to take the leap until you officially, I think, started promoting it or had your first tour, the soft launch, like they say, how many months, what was the time period where you fully dedicated to that? What obstacles, did you have along the way? And And how do you deal with things that are, out of your control, or first, how do I deal with this?
Great question. So, kind of back to what we were saying, I have a lot of mentors. I have, Kevin, Lisa, and Dean, Dean, the franchisee in Cleveland, and Kevin and Lisa, my business partners out of Charlotte. If it weren't for them, there's no way I would have been able to get through this on my own. They are there for me through thick and thin, whatever I'm dealing with just to help coach me through how to handle various situations, whether it be, mechanical something with the bus or a customer challenge or staffing challenge, right? There's so many different variables in running this business. Um, so, and it's a giant learning curve, right? I suddenly went from sales executive to owning a tourism business. So, you're learning, I have to, I'm learning how to maintain an old converted Bluebird school bus. And there's not just any old mechanic that can work on one of those, right? So there's a lot of little details and things that you don't even think about until you go to do it. And I could have racked my brain all day about those things before I decided to launch. But if you start doing that, you start second guessing yourself. And, the truth is, I've been able to figure out things my whole life. I knew that I had the support system to get me through these things. Not only do I have my business partners and, the Dean, the franchisee in Cleveland's experience to, get advice from, but I also have the support system, all my friends and family. It helps that I'm from Atlanta and I do have all those resources. So, I have friends that have been in management, or HR or for years and years with tons of experience. I have friends that are lawyers. So it's that has all been a big impact on my success and being able to leverage that knowledge from
Leaning on your network.
leaning on my network, right?
Yeah.
So it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Who you know, yeah.
I know that's cliche, but
No,
it is
it's so true.
It's so true. So, don't get me wrong, in the beginning, I was scared out of my mind. I was like questioning what I did. What did I do?
I was gonna ask, I'm like, what is your thought process? Like, what was running through your head? Did you have insecurity or
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think like with anything, when you take a big risk and look, we're all used to our routine. And, you know, one of the biggest fears in life is change, right? And you're uprooting a part of your life that you're so comfortable with. Me, it was being in a sales job, selling a software solution. You're used to making a certain amount of money a lot of times, or,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
average, a certain amount of money. You've got health benefits.
Yep.
It's comfortable. It's very comfortable. And as human beings, we like to be being inside our box, right? So when we leave that little box, it's scary. And especially when you're leaping into an industry that you really don't know much about. So absolutely the first year, I'm not gonna lie, people are like, "Are you having fun?" I'm like, "No, I'm not having fun. I'm scared out of my mind. It's not fun yet because it's hard work and it's not for the faint of heart. I was working 12 to 14-hour days every day. All I did was eat, sleep, and work. And you're really kind of running on adrenaline at one point, because it's not a situation of like, that of it's okay if this doesn't work out, or it has to work.
There's no
There's
turning
no
back.
turning back. So you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that it's a success. And because everything is on the line, for me, and most people that are making this kind of decision, it's one of the biggest decisions you make in your life. So there's no there's no anything less than giving it 150% from the minute you launch a business. And I think one of the scariest parts for me is when the bus that I just spent thousands of dollars renovating actually finally made it to Atlanta, which has one of the worst traffic or has the worst traffic in the country. It's definitely in the top five. And then you have, a bus driver who you just met, or, you're relying on them to make sure that, they're not going to crash your bus on the streets of Atlanta, or is, it will test your nerves a little bit. It's one thing to work hard for someone else, but it's someone else's business. It's another company. And you have no control over that person, four management levels above you, or even one management level above you, or even your team, on what decisions get made. And you're really at the whim of the environment that you're given. And that's part of the reason, being in sales, you have to be so resilient. Territories change, your products change, your manager changes,
Everything could
what you're
completely
selling.
change.
You
Yeah.
were an account manager, now you're selling this, now you're doing both. So it's this, you're constantly being, getting the rug changed out from underneath your feet, right? And you're having to adapt. And look, it's the same thing when you own a business, but it's mine. This is my business. And when it's your business and you're growing something that's yours, that you've helped create, your passion for it is just different, and you're willing to put in that time, sweat, and tears because you know that it's something that you're putting your heart and soul and passion into. And so it's much more of a personal thing when you're owning your own business, to put that kind of time in, knowing that it's a lot of work, but it's mine. So it's very different in that way.
We were talking before about having to wear the many hats, kind of along the lines with the long hours. Do you, right now you mentioned that you're doing pretty much everything, right?
Correct.
So do you plan to eventually, as you keep growing, to have someone to do some of that stuff?
I think eventually I probably will have to. I'm not there yet, but I I think as the business grows, it's going to get to a point where I will need to have some additional people on the team to help support certain areas. Because right now I'm washing the bus, cleaning the bus. My team helps clean too after the shifts, but nonetheless, I always will go down and clean the bus before the weekend and make sure it's all nice and shiny. I'm managing the booking system. I'm answering phone calls. I'm sending emails. I'm putting together the schedule for my team. I'm training my staff. I'm certain comedians. I'm also training drivers. They have to know the route. I put together the history script on my own. I put together the whole route on my own. I'm out marketing and selling and, dropping off brochures and networking. You literally, as a business owner, you're doing all of it. So, once I get to a place where we're growing enough and that we're getting busier, which we're getting it, we're moving in that direction. I absolutely am going to need some sort of support. Now, what areas right now, I'm not sure. I think that as it evolves, I will naturally kind of know where I need the help. But, you know, I don't foresee myself being the only person doing all of these things for the long term, without a doubt. I'm going to need some additional support.
Did you have a routine when you were in corporate, and how does that differ to let's say, like, do you wake up, do you have a certain routine? Because I know we hear about the morning routine. Do you have such a thing or?
Yeah, I do. I think, that kind of sort of naturally falls into place too. You don't know what that looks like at first, but then when you start actually going through the process of things you have to do to support your business, then it kind of just, I don't know, I feel like it falls in place a little bit. Wake up in the morning, answer emails, update the booking system, um, uh, answer phone calls. I a lot of times have to communicate with my staff on whether or not, we may have a private tour that week, and, managing that and making sure that they know the time, where we're picking up the client, and following up with the client, making sure they, know where we're meeting, confirming those details. Again, that's kind of part of sales too, right?
Mm-hmm,
You're using
mm-hmm.
that experience of, which I've done thousands of times with other customers in my previous roles. It's very similar, in some of those processes. You have a routine when you do payroll every other week, or when I get schedule requests to do the schedule, and when I go clean the bus, right? So you start to kind of figure out little by little what your routine is to do certain things. And it's, for me, it just sort of becomes a natural part of the process to whatever works for you and makes sense for the business. But absolutely, without any kind of routine or systematic approach to managing it would be chaos.
Yeah. Are you happier now?
Oh my gosh. I am like so happy. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely some days that are rough, and different scenarios come my way that I haven't been through yet. I mean, we're still barely, let's see, it's been a year. It was a year in April. So, we're just a little, not even quite a year and a half yet. So there's still a lot of learning happening. I'm through the total nightmare phase, which is the first year, essentially. So I'm not working 14 hours, I'm working 12. Yeah. but but I don't have that feeling of like, is this gonna work, or I don't know if this is gonna crash and burn.
You're
I
past that
We're
phase.
past that
Okay.
part, and now it's more about fine tuning the processes and positioning my team for growth, and setting us up for further success, right? So I feel like we really have a lot of the bones and the structure now, and now it's just kind of building that out, for future growth.
Do you what kind of boss are you with your employees?
When you say what kind of boss, really, I
Because you said in corporate you didn't, a lot of the decisions or a lot of the changes were in a sense out of your control.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you guide them? Do you instill process? What is at the forefront of, is it the customer experience? What things do you focus on with your team?
That's a great question. So I think it's really important to me to have a very cohesive team with a lot of open communication. I want that family feel where everybody works well together. I mean, you have different personalities. There is going to be some conflict at times, just like in corporate America, right? We have people that we love to work with, but then there's always those people maybe you butt heads with, or maybe you just don't get along with as well, right? And you have to navigate that personality. That's just part of life. And if you can't successfully navigate the people that you don't get along with as well, then going to be you're not going to be able to really thrive, um, because that's just part of the nature of owning a business, and working, with others. So I think the big thing is letting I want my team to know that they have open communication, and that they're not afraid to come to me if they have concerns about something. And that there's that, you know, feeling of just being part of a team, and that I welcome their ideas, right? I think it's important to, let them be creative. They're creative. They're entertainers. They, and that's why I hired them, is for their creativity. So things like, their jokes, I let them be very open, let them be themselves, let them be very creative with their jokes, what songs they like to play. Um, you know, any ideas about different routes, social media, videos, marketing. I welcome all of their thoughts. I mean, they're actually some of the most creative people I know. So if I don't tap into that and get their ideas, um, that would be stupid on my part. So I really try to foster this, um, you know, culture of like creativity and not being afraid to like express themselves, and just have that open line of communication, fairness. No one person on the team is more important than another. The drivers and the comedians are just as important as the other. There is no tour if there is no driver. And just having that mutual respect for each other, and make all of that. If they're happy, it comes out in their shows too. And at the end of the day, it's about the customer experience. So when the comedian and the team is happy, they're customer facing, they're interacting with the guests, it shows, right, in their performance in the tours. So that's kind of, those are the environments I've liked to work in my life. So that's the kind of environment that I want for my team.
Do you feel that you've been able, for example, from the 9 to 5? I feel like when you have the 9 to 5, your life revolves around, corporate and being at work. Do you feel that now out of corporate, you have actually more time, even though you're working maybe 12 to 14-hour days?
I I have more flexibility on when I want to reserve time for myself in some ways. It's a little bit different. 9 to 5, you're working during the week. I'll work a lot more weekends now because I own a tourism business, and that's when our tours are. So that's definitely been an adjustment. But, you know, I don't even really even think about that. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't go to that festival, or I can't go to this party because it's on the weekend. But at the end of the day, I'm building something so much greater than me worrying about going to some event, which, most of those things I've been to a billion times anyway, because I'm from Atlanta. And, there will be a time where I won't be as busy, and I won't be in so much of this building this business from the ground up mode. Um, I'm still, just I'm through the nightmare year, but the next 2 to 3 years are probably going to be, still in that mode of really rolling up your sleeves and having to do what you got to do to, have the team that you trust, to where it's a little bit more running itself. But in answer to your question, I think in some ways I have more time, but in other ways, I don't even really think about it. It's not a question of, oh, I wanted to do this. It's like, you just got to do what you got to do to make it run smoothly. And I know that the end result of doing all this now is for the better. It's for, the future of, owning my own business and not answering to someone else
Mm-hmm.
and someone else's demands. It's my business and my demands on myself.
In terms of, I'm going to touch a little bit on the finances. Um, how much of an investment was it? Were you prepared for it? I know you said to rebuild the bus, it was a couple of $1,000s. Has
It was beyond a couple of $1,000s. It was a lot of money.
Were you, I guess, going into that, were you aware of how much of an investment it was going to be?
I was, because that was part of the planning and discussions when we were negotiating what that would look like, as a franchisee and bringing it to Atlanta. So we, fully discussed that. You know, I, at least I discussed that with my business partners and what that looked like, so that there were no surprises. And we definitely came to, a great agreement on things. I mean, it's a benefit when you have that relationship and trust with someone else. It's a win-win for them too, because they really wanted to open up into another market. And, Atlanta is, the focus of the South, or the, you know, huge market, right? And so for them, they'd love to bring the Funny Bus brand to a huge city. And, obviously they wanted somebody that they trusted, and we've known each other for almost 30 years. So it was really a win-win, because I was ready to start a business. I'd rather do it now than 5 or 6 years from now, when I probably wouldn't have a fraction of the energy. Um, and that was the other thing that came, as a huge part of my decision, was where do I want my life to be in 5 or 6 years? And if I don't do this now, I may never get the chance again, because I just felt that in my gut that this was the time. And um, everything just felt like the right moment to make this move, the right opportunity, the right time. And you just kind of go with your gut and follow it.
Yeah, I think when I called you to do this podcast, we touched a little bit on the timing of how things happen and how crazy it is. Like your friends planting the seed, but you weren't ready, and it just kind of being in the back of your mind. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy how sometimes things just happen
The
when
way
it
that they're
happens. Yeah,
supposed to,
yeah.
right? And I'll say this, Nancy, I knew that I had to do it when I realized if I didn't take this step or this leap, I would regret it for the rest of my life. That's how I felt. I was like, even if I fail, which I didn't think I was going to fail, but there's always that chance. It's a risk. But I was like, I would rather fail taking the risk, knowing that I tried, than stay in something that I was unhappy in and that I didn't want to do anymore. And so for me, it was worth it. And no matter what bumps in the road were ahead of me, which, because I had no idea what what they were and what I was in store for, but all the challenges, all the nightmare things that came up that were unforeseen, have all been worth it. Have all been worth it, because it's just having started your own business and see it grow, and especially to what it already is in just barely over a year, is just incredibly fulfilling.
So I'm gonna, before we end this, I there's two areas, or two main areas that I wanted to touch on, because we do have two backgrounds, so the corporate side and now being your own business owner. So for, let's say, graduates or people entering the workforce, starting out, do you have any advice for those entering the workforce, especially in sales? What recommendations or things, from your experience, because you have a lot of experience in that field, what would be?
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I can offer, and something that I've noticed that is a roadblock for people that I've worked with, not just on my team, but throughout my career, is recognizing they don't know it all. You come across people, they don't want help, or they have a lot of ego, and they think, oh, I don't need this person's help. I already know what I'm doing at the ripe old age of 20 or whatever age they are. I guess we've all been there,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
But I think, nobody's perfect, nobody knows everything, and to just be able to kind of let go and say, hey, not being afraid to learn from someone else. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit before. Some of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life, or the biggest, you know, best learning experiences, have come from my peers. And or if someone's really successful in an area and you know, oh my gosh, this person's doing really well with this, what are they doing, how are they doing it, you know, learning from them, you know, whether it's in sales, sitting on a phone call, you know, hey, can I get 20 minutes of your time? Like I said, most people are willing to give you their time if you ask them and you're nice about it. You know, generally speaking, people are willing to help one another. Um, and I see some real expertise on my team with certain individuals, and sometimes I don't feel like that expertise is being taken advantage of like it could be from others that could really soar. And it's not even a talent thing, they're super talented, but you can have all the talent in the world if you're not willing to grow, or you know, not learn more, and um, be willing to uh, nurture that talent. It What good is it if you don't really try to capitalize and grow yourself or fine tune that? So I just think learning from others and gaining that knowledge through them and in different experiences. You may not do well at something. You may actually suck at something, but why? Try to figure out what you can do. You may never be great at that thing, whatever it is, but not having enough pride and being willing to say, hey, how can I figure out this out and try to improve myself in this area, and having some humility, and you know, tap on someone's shoulder that has that expertise that might be able to help you grow. I mean, I think that that's actually one of the most beneficial things we can do for ourselves as individuals.
Agreed. And then the second question is for individuals that may have a dream or, you know, something like your friends, they planted the seed, but you weren't ready. For those that are afraid to do something different or afraid to leave their comfort and explore something else, although it may be nagging at them.
I think trusting your gut is a big piece of it. Like if you feel like that this is something you should do and need to do. I mean, following your heart and your gut in that respect, but you also have to have common sense with it, right? I mean, I think sometimes that goes along with just like world experience. Um, you know, I took a risk, but it was also like, you know, it was a risk, but I also knew that I trusted the my I trusted my partners and the situation. So, you know, what's the saying? Luck is a combination of preparation and being at the right place at the right time. That's the truth. You know, having experience and knowledge and being prepared, but also the right time in meeting that is, you know, it really is true. It's a recipe for greater success when you have those things. And, you know, I have this situation where I have a blueprint from people that I trust that are willing to help support me in a new market, and then I have my own experience as well. So it's like, you know, there's all these different variables, but in the end, what it boiled down to was like, this was a calculated risk that I was willing to take. And I had enough experience in life to have a pretty good gut feeling that was going to be a good move.
I think something that you mentioned as well is that you knew you have figured difficult things out on your own in your past and your experience. So being resourceful. So knowing that you know, that you can figure things out, I think also helps.
100%. You know, I think life throws us a lot of curveballs, everybody, right? We're all just trying to get through this life in this world. We all have obstacles, challenges. Everybody's fighting a battle that we know nothing about, right? We're human, but it's how you're able to navigate those challenges and overcome them that really, I think, sets you up for more success when you just have a mindset of I'm going to figure this out. And even everybody has their really bad days, right? We all have moments of thinking that, that the sky is going to fall on us. We all do. But it's really a mindset of, you have a bad day, maybe it's a really bad day, one of the worst of your life, whatever the scenario, but you've got to dust your knees off and figure it out and realize like you're going to get through this and just figure out ways to really push through. And so much of it's mental, and I think that's really really important.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for being my first guest. And I also want to take the opportunity to I want to share kind of with people that, change helps us grow. It's scary,
Mm-hmm.
but, at the end of the day, even if you fail, at least you tried.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think I also, yeah, I have that mentality. I always want to grow and learn something because life can be pretty boring if you keep doing the same thing over and over. So we got to mix it up, right?
Yes, yes. I
So,
want to thank you. And I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm going to be on the funny bus for the first time.
yay!
And for those of you, how can they, if they're in Atlanta, how can they get in contact?
Sure. Yeah. So you can get on the funny bus, or ride the funny bus at funnybus.net. You can buy tickets. We have the Atlanta page, and then of course we're in Cleveland, as well as Charlotte, North Carolina. You can also follow us on Instagram at funnybusatl. But yeah, absolutely, it's the funniest tour in town.